I'm Chris Newton, creator of Feed, the Vampire Mythos RPG. In 10-Minute Mythos, I prove the endless possibilities of vampire role-playing by taking one random inspiration and using it to sketch out an original vampire mythos, all in 10 minutes. No prep, no script, just one gamer who loves a good vampire story. Wish me luck. Okay, so today for my seed, I'm going to be using a random result from They Fight Crime, which is a wonderful site that generates buddy cop stories. So I'm going to click that real quick. Hopefully I'll come up with something I can use for a vampire story. Okay, he's a war-weary, sweet-toothed gentleman spy haunted by an iconic dead American confidant. She's a transdimensional, out-of-work bodyguard in the witness protection scheme. They fight crime. Okay, so yeah, we can do that. This actually looks good. So first thing, let's figure out how this story would work and how vampires would play into it. He's a war-weary, sweet-toothed gentleman spy. Can a vampire be sweet-toothed? I guess so. And anyway, these are going to be like investigators or cops of some kind. So let's say this is going to be a strain of vampires that's pretty much human-like. They eat and all that. They're like maybe undead, but they can kind of do all the human stuff, like Buffy vampires. And in fact, they can probably go out in the day too. That'll make investigation a little bit easier. He's war-weary. That'll work. Maybe he's an older guy, maybe like a much older guy, like a vampire. And so he, is quite old and has been through a war in the past. Gentleman spy. That works. Kind of like a wispy. Like in a game I have coming up, I was planning on playing this character who's like an older, kind of confirmed bachelor, sort of Clifton Webb type of dude. And I'm not going to get to play him. So maybe I'll use that idea here. He's that guy. He's been through a war, maybe the Korean War. He's kind of torn up about it, but now he's kind of acerbic and bitter. He's sweet-toothed, so that's cool. He's a bit of a foodie. Listen to desserts and stuff, and he can't really put on any weight because he's a vampire. He's haunted by an iconic dead American confidant, which is like a blank check to a storyteller. An iconic dead American confidant. So maybe this is another vampire, and maybe this is somebody who is dead in the sense that had to kind of like was famous enough to have to fake death. So who would be good for that? An iconic dead American confidant. All right, we'll get back to this. So yeah, he has some friend who is a vampire who used to be somebody famous. Now let's go to she. She is a transdimensional, out-of-work bodyguard in the witness protection scheme. So the hardest thing to work in here is the witness protection scheme, because if you're transdimensional, it would be weird that you would be able to go through a process like that. But maybe we can make this some kind of like conspiracy story. Maybe the government knows about vampires and other supernatural weirdness. And so when maybe she's in the witness protection scheme to give her the cover of like a regular human life, right? So now is she also going to be a vampire? Because the other guy is he apparently is just a regular human until he becomes a vampire, so it would be weird for him to have come from another dimension. But when they say transdimensional, that doesn't have to mean that she comes from another dimension. Maybe she just went to another dimension. So this is turning into like more of a strange sci-fi story, and we can't forget that they fight crime. So we need to work that in. Are they private investigators? Are they cops or what? What I'm envisioning now is an X-Files type story where you have like but like a little more tongue-in-cheek and a little bit more gonzo. You have basically a government agency of some kind that hires these supernatural creatures of various kinds to do different kinds of work for them. But that's a little bit kind of, it's more sort of serious, more kind of has the potential to go military. Like, how this is if you give PCs government connections, and pretty soon, they're going to be armed to the teeth and all that. And that's not really what we want. So maybe I'll make them some kind of, they fight crime in some other more limited capacity. They're not like, because I'm thinking of more of an investigative game within like a little action element to it, rather than just like full tilt, rocket launchers and all that stuff. So they're going to need to be in some kind of government agency that keeps them a little more low-key. Again, we'll return to this. So she's transdimensional. She is an operative. She's gone to other dimensions. She's an out-of-work bodyguard. So she was originally a bodyguard and then she saw some shit go down that's supernatural, and now they can't let her out. Maybe that's how this works. And so she's now kind of drafted into this investigative job, which, using her bodyguard skills and also the fact that they can't really let her live if she leaves, she now has to take up this second career as an investigator, and they pair her up with this much older guy who's been a vampire for a really long time. So that can actually work. Here's an idea. Take this kind of like, sometimes in like SCP stories, that's SCP, I enunciate so people can look it up. On the SCP wiki, sometimes there are things they're trying to contain that can infect you. They can somehow get to you. So here's the idea. It's transdimensional. There are these weird creatures and experiences that happen. And somehow that is what's transmitting vampirism. Like the true vampires, the weird vampires, are like almost like humanoid mythos creatures, right? They're incomprehensible. They're savage. They attack with no rhyme or reason. They come from a dimension we can't understand. And then when it gets into you, though, it makes you a more traditional kind of vampire who has a human guise, right? So it's like, it's sort of like the two sides of Dracula represented in these two different kinds of vampires. You have the ones from another dimension, which are like the beastly, incomprehensible side. And then you have the sort of genteel, basically human side that is when a human is infected by one of these like original or true vampires. And maybe the agency is composed of people who've been infected in some way, which makes me think, actually, let's not make this a government agency at all. Let's make this some kind of private contractor who then, it's a sort of like a detective agency who does some kind of special work. In fact, let's put it down to the city level, though. Let's say that, because then you can have a national conspiracy to investigate, but on the city level, you've got like lower level stuff happening. You got less oversight. You don't have to deal with all that federal government stuff right away. You're not a native to federal bureaucracy once you start trying to investigate the conspiracy. So they're operating on the city level. Let's say they're a special unit in the police force, actually. So they're kind of government, but they're totally local. And nobody above them, unlike the state level or anything, knows what they do because they live in a really weird town. And so they're like basically these two cops who are sort of like special investigators, social workers, very nebulous kind of job description, which basically exists to take people who've been accidentally inducted into this world and keep them in a capacity where they can be watched and they can help if they have useful skills. So that's what they are. They're like paranormal investigators. Now, as to the iconic dead American confidant, okay, crazy idea, because this is already like a little bit of a gonzo game. You remember, well, of course you don't because you're my age, but do you remember when Richard Nixon gave he specially deputized Elvis? Okay, this could be the beginning of this thing in some way, like he's involved in that in some way. So what I want is a shadowy figure who is implied to be, but never explicitly stated to be, Elvis, who is involved with this organization somehow and is sort of like the Yoda of this group. Okay, so he sits in his office in the shadows, and he's got the accent and he's got the hair, but he's much older now, much wiser, and he gives them these jobs. And it's this mismatched team of this older guy who basically just wants to he's very snobby, very snarky. He's got the little mustache, and he's got some military experience too, though, so he's got some useful skills. He's kind of haunted by what he saw in the Korean War, but now he's just very cynical about the whole world. Like, he hates this whole thing. He can't believe that this happened to him. And he certainly doesn't want after the horrors that he's seen both in war and these transdimensional vampires, he doesn't want this girl hanging around. The girl is like a kind of she used to be a bodyguard, so she's sort of like kick-ass, kickboxing, sort of very very modern, very independent, and to make a contrast between them, I think she should be a little bit less urbane. So I'm sort of thinking of a character who is sort of like down home, kind of Ellie Mae kind of a character, and then they're put together and they have to fight crime. So that's the idea. They go out, they fight transdimensional vampires. Occasionally they have to recruit somebody, and they investigate regular crimes and use their vampiric powers to stop them. And then eventually they investigate the mystery of, who knows about the supernatural? Why are these rifts opening up? How are they getting through this dimension? What is their ultimate plan? You've got an alien invasion angle, basically. You've got a conspiracy angle. And then you've got a crime drama at the center of it all with two characters who don't quite get along, but they have to. because they're both vampires together and they have to feed, which they do on like thugs and stuff. And so you can have an underworld who is like the criminals in town are the only ones who realize that something very shady is going on with this little secret group inside the police. And so you can have like sort of comedy police corruption, where they're like feeding in the underworld, and it becomes common knowledge that these two are total weirdos. They're not like regular cops, but you know, nobody believes them. And of course, the strange things that everybody starts to see involved in this unit, no one believes. And that's 10 minutes. So there you go, 10-minute Mythos.